Hello and welcome to Cycles of Time, your weekly guide to what's happening on Earth as we make our revolutionary journey around the sun. For time immemorial, our human ancestors have created myths and meanings to help us adapt and thrive as seasons change. Join me each week to explore the intersections of these ancient cycles, from the indigenous medicine wheel to the pagan wheel of the year, the Babylonian and Greek zodiac to the I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes. I'm your host, Alison Dale, and this is the Cycles of Time podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to Cycles of Time podcast. This is your weekly forecast for September 1st to 7th, 2025. And this episode is called Lunar Eclipse Vibes. I'm brave, I'm strong, I know where I belong. And we'll get into what that means in just a minute here. So yes, we are in the much anticipated eclipse portal. The lunar eclipse in Pisces is here this Sunday, which is kind of launching us into a September of chaos, or we might want to rephrase it as divine realignment. That can feel like chaos a little bit. Eclipses happen a couple of times a year when the sun and the moon and the earth are aligning around the nodes of fate, which are the points in the moon's elliptical orbit where it's closest and furthest from the earth. That's the perigee and apogee of the elliptical orbit of the moon. And so every time the moon and sun align with these points in the chart in the elliptic around the earth, we have eclipses. So north and south node are very associated with eclipses, and eclipses happen in pairs or sometimes threesomes all the time, and eclipse seasons are the times of the year that lead up to and exist between the eclipses. So I didn't used to know about eclipse seasons growing up, but I feel like it's kind of common vernacular these days. And it just really means this time when the sun and moon are around the north and south node. And so, yeah, this eclipse, this lunar eclipse on Sunday, is a north node eclipse, which means we're finding a culmination of something, like it's a full moon. So there's this culmination, and also hungering for something new. That's the north node's influence. So culmination and hungering for something new with this eclipse. And then on September 21st, we have a south node solar eclipse. And the south node is about releasing the tail of the dragon as opposed to the head of the dragon, which is the north node. So a south node solar eclipse is going to be a time of releasing something that's no longer in alignment with our life path. And it's a new moon, so it's about kind of setting intentions or receiving what the universe's intentions are for us surrounding that release. So for me, the message that's coming through loud and clear for this eclipse season, which really started on the last new moon in Virgo, is surrender and release and allow the universe to work its magic. So surrender, that word I feel like is it's like kind of loaded. It's kind of complicated. And it's hard to know what that even means or how one would actually just do that in times like this without feeling like we're spiritually bypassing or giving up, right? But surrender is a really important concept when it comes to eclipses. And I'd say that for someone like me, raised in a culture where logic is really the only approved way of knowing, kind of the only codified and sanctioned way of knowing, I would say that it's difficult to understand the concept of surrender or feel into the concept of what surrender really means. Because if we're only using our logical left brains to understand the world, surrender can oftentimes be equated with collapse or giving up or just waving that white flag and admitting you're a failure. It's kind of a defeat that is associated with surrender when we're using just our logical brains. But when we expand our ways of knowing beyond the left hemisphere of the brain and allow space for the creative right brain, for the gut brain, and for the resonant heart, these beautiful, beautiful energetic parts of the body, neurological parts of the body. Yeah, I'd say allowing space for those and maybe even reverence for those parts I'd say with that, surrender starts to make a lot more sense. And surrender starts at that point to really feel like the only way to truly evolve. Because in surrendering, we're loosening the grip of control that our conscious minds crave so badly, and just kind of loosening the reins on the horse, so that it's not in an anxiety-driven race all the time. And I'd say that our minds crave that control so badly that our obsession with control leads to co-creating a world that has no room for magic. A world where the outcome that comes from that tightly gripped reins is not what we actually want, even though we think we're getting what we want when we seek control. And so it's kind of it feels very Piscean, actually. It feels very nebulous. It feels like, well, yeah, how can it be that when I release and loosen, that things actually happen more to what I desire? That feels just counterintuitive to the logical framework that we have in kind of this analog culture of like materialism and just everything our culture has been set up on. I'd say that, surrender feels a lot more quantum. It feels like we're moving into how the universe actually works when we surrender, rather than trying to say like, well, if I push this domino and it hits the next one and it hits the next one, it hits the next one, then inevitably all the dominoes are going to fall and I'm going to feel success. But that's usually not how it works. So I would say during this eclipse season, remember that surrendering is simply listening to the universe, being in a receiving place from the larger rhythms that are around us. And that's really all it is, letting the universe speak to us and not trying to do much more than that, receiving. And during eclipse season, that is the ritual, is listening to the universe, slowing down, feeling into those paradoxical, confusing just feelings, and knowing that that's kind of where the juice is. I think that, we spend the majority of our time dancing with the cycles of the moon and the sun. Every month we have a full moon, and every 2 weeks it's a new moon, full moon cycle, and we're always doing this dance, the earth, moon, and sun kind of surround, in this rhythmic way. But in most of this dance, as we pay attention to the moon cycles, we're focusing on conscious manifesting. The sun is related to our consciousness, to our willpower, and then the moon is related to emotional attunement. So we're focusing the majority of our time on conscious manifesting and emotional attunement. But eclipse season comes along twice a year to show us that there's more to the picture than our feelings and our thoughts. There's more to the picture than our individualized notions of self. During eclipse season, Mother Earth makes herself known and reminds us that we too are of the earth, and that the workings of the earth are very important to consider. So, that's something that I've really thought about a lot, because the full moon normally is a reflection between the sun and the moon. It's this kind of opposition, this polarity where they're having a conversation. But when the earth's shadow comes in between, as it will this Sunday, it's kind of saying like, hey, I'm here too. Like, the ground you stand on, the earth you walk on, the situations that you find yourself in are just as important as these kind of projected visions of consciousness and emotionality, that sun moon polarity. So, and then similarly with a solar eclipse, the earth is making itself known in the sense that perceptively a solar eclipse is when the moon blocks the sun from our perspective on Earth, but we'd have to be at this exact perspective on Earth, this exact distance from the sun, for that to happen. Solar eclipses are pretty magical, because it's kind of like, how miraculous is that the moon is the perfect size to cover the sun for the most part. Or there's a ring of fire eclipse where there's a little ring left, but of the sun around it, but it's this pretty spectacular direct covering, and that makes it just reminds me of, it requires this exact positioning of the sun, moon, and earth for that to happen. So in that way, the earth is making herself known on a solar eclipse. So we're connected to an interwoven tapestry of evolutionary becoming as humans here on earth. And eclipses remind us to root into the present moment and the material reality of the here and now, the tangible, dank, composted remains of past cycles that make up the soil. During eclipses, I'd say that the earth is subtly nudging us and saying, pay attention to me. And notice where you've become kind of overly disassociated from the grounded reality of the soil and your body. Our bodies are made up, we're carbon life forms, and our bodies are made up of the same stuff as the soil and the rest of the universal matter. But the soil is something that we can touch, something that nurtures us, something that grows our food, is something to pay attention to during eclipses, I'd say. And we can become really overly disassociated from that grounded reality through both mental activity and emotional activity and the consistent interplay between those. So eclipses are times to pay attention and pay reverence to Mother Earth. I spent some of last week out in a beautiful, beautiful cabin wilderness area in northern New Mexico. It was just so apparent there to me how important it is to be connecting with nature during eclipse seasons as much as possible, touching grass, digging in the dirt. I went fly fishing and just slowly walked around this pond. And it was very meditative and saw chipmunks and squirrels and trout and dragonflies. And it was just paying attention to the fact that there's more than me. There's more than the news. There's more than humans. There's a huge wide ecosystem that's interwoven on this planet, and that felt like the most grounding and important thing to pay attention to. So yeah, I feel like, especially for this particular eclipse, where next Sunday the sun's light on the full moon will be eclipsed by the shadow of the earth, and the moon will be in Pisces in human design gate 63, which is the gate of doubt or curiosity. And the sun is across the sky in gate 64, the gate of confusion or imagination. These are the last two hexagrams of the I Ching, 63 and 64. And my birthday is in gate 64. The sun was in gate 64 when I was born, which means that in the human design system, my conscious earth was in gate 63. So this eclipse axis is very, very poignant for me. If your birthday is in early first week of March or the first week of September, this eclipse will show up very powerfully for you. So if that is the case, let me know in the comments how everything's going for you. And also, if you're, it's a 15-degree eclipse, 15 degrees and 22 minutes. And so if you're sun or any other important planet, if you have planetary activation at 15 degrees of any sign, but especially the mutable signs of Virgo, Pisces, Sagittarius, and Gemini, this eclipse might affect you more than others. So 15 degrees, it's right there in the middle of the signs. So the 63-64 on a normal full moon would be kind of a puzzle illumination axis. The gate of confusion and imagination has the city of illumination in the gene keys. And the gate of doubt and curiosity is all about insight and inquiry. So the sun in 64, that confusion, imagination, illumination energy radiates this raw mystery, the cloud before the clarity. It's kind of as that final gate of the cycle of the I Ching. It's bringing us some awareness that we have to be in a position of confusion before clarity is reached and before a new cycle can emerge. It's that final darkness before the dawn kind of energy. But the moon in 63, which is that doubt to inquiry energy, is normally reflecting back the testing and the frameworks and the questioning and the curiosity and the doubt to make sense of that confusion or that imaginal cell realm. So there's this polarity between reaching conclusions through doubting and questioning and then living in the mystery. And so a normal full moon on this axis is about kind of weaving together that paradox, the mind's doubt and the imagination's openness to possibility. And so there's a beautiful, all full moons have this polarity where they're taking into consideration seeming opposites, but they're unified within a certain axis. And when you integrate those, there can be a beautiful epiphany, a beautiful kind of connection between seemingly opposite energies. But in a lunar eclipse, it's a little bit different. It's not a normal full moon because the Earth, again, is intruding its shadow between the sun and the moon, coming right in between the two. And instead of the moon purely reflecting the sun's light, the material body, which is the Earth, that represents our collective reality and survival needs and form and material reality, that interposes in the middle. So the shadow of the Earth here says this isn't just a mystical dialogue between theoretical ideals. This has consequences in the material realm. And so, in other words, the pressure of doubt from Gate 63 isn't just theoretical or emotional. It's obscured by the Earth's reality and brought into the body and brought into the Earth plane. And it becomes less about, can I see the mystery clearly? And more about, can I live with the shadow of not knowing? I wrote a post on Instagram that, and on Substack, that I just felt was kind of the most poignant way to put this idea, which is that the lunar eclipse in Pisces that's upcoming is kind of like a dismantling of, I'll believe it when I see it. The 364 axis can be a bit of like, there's a mystery, but like, let's see some proof. But this eclipse is saying you won't see it all, believe it anyway, love anyway, and act anyway. You're not going to have necessarily the whole picture. And so that's where this piece about surrender comes in. In the lunar eclipse, the Earth's shadow shows up on the moon, blocking the light of the sun. And in the solar eclipse, the moon blocks the rays of the sun from shining. And so, yeah, when we look at it this way, I really do feel like all eclipses are times where the material reality of the Earth is in conversation with our closest celestial neighbor, the moon. And those two are highlighted. Always the sun is always being blocked in an eclipse, the sun's light. And so our bodies are listening to our emotions more, not just to our monkey minds and our conceptual reality. And the channel is open between the interconnected web that we live in and our emotional reality. So eclipses can be quite emotional times, and be sure to allow yourself space to feel the emotions that come through and express them and cry and laugh and whatever it is that you need to do. I highly recommend expression of emotions during this time and not trying to control it too much. I'd say that your emotional frequency during eclipses is your surfboard in the waves of chaos. So going back to surrender and collapse and the difference between the two, when I feel into it, I believe that the only real difference between surrender and collapse truly is the feeling and the emotion behind how we enter that state. So in a state of collapse or giving up, we are carrying with us the emotion of defeat or of depression or of fear. And when we're in a state of surrender, we carry with us the emotions of peace and acceptance and even abundance. And I'd say that this is where we get to have a say during eclipse season. It's not necessarily a say in the what, why, when, and how of conscious planning about how things are going to go, because that will almost inevitably be thrown out the back door. But we do get to have a say in the emotional frequency that we're tuning into the rest of the world with. So within that listening and that receiving process, we have kind of a filter where the energy of the interwoven material reality of the Earth and all of its workings are coming into our emotional bodies and into our thoughts as well. And so tuning our emotional radio to a frequency that filters that whatever it is that's happening, the realities of what might feel chaotic, is really a place where we can have a little bit of power here in the surrender, right? So, we're so used to having our minds in the driver's seat, and we need tools to access that emotional knowing and that frequency of acceptance and abundance. It doesn't come naturally necessarily because our minds are always craving information and going to scroll and scroll until they feel saturated and going to click through the news and the different channels just until they feel saturated. And the world is so set up for us to be overly saturated with information. And that can lead to a general feeling of like dissonance, I would say. Might not even be fear or depression, but it could just be like, whoa, I just saw so many different types of takes on this on this eclipse, or I felt so many different takes on what this current event that's happening, that I don't even know how to feel, but I know I feel not resonant. I don't feel abundant. I don't feel accepting at all. And so we go into a time when we need to surrender, perhaps when we don't have control, and we carry with us a filter of dissonance and a filter of fear. And so this is not, it's a little bit of a mindset hack, but it's more of a body emotional tool, where it's like doing what you can in your diet, your physical, like food, drink diet, but also your media diet during this time, taking in things that do make you feel a little bit more resonant or connected or hopeful or abundant, so that when things do go a little bit off the rails, you'll be prepared to be grounded into the Earth's energy that will hold you. And so this eclipse falls on my solar return by exact degree and gate, which I said. And so this eclipse is falling directly across from my sun, blocking the light of my sun in effect. And as a Leo rising, the sun is my chart ruler. So this feels extra potent. And I'll admit that I've been feeling a lot of different dissonant emotions about this upcoming lunation, including fear and trepidation and anxiety. And I talked to a friend the other day whose sun is in gate 63, which will be the eclipse, where the moon is during the eclipse. And I asked her how she's feeling about this eclipse being on her sun. And she said she was nervous-sighted, which is an emotion that her daughter had described when she was 5. And this morning I actually woke up and my daughter, who is 6, said the same thing, because she's starting school tomorrow, and was like, I'm nervous and excited. I'm scared, excited. And so I was like, oh yeah, nervous sighted. I just learned this word. So thanks, Britain, for that. I feel you. Nervous sighted is very much a real emotion. Anxiety and surprise and excitement kind of exist on that same high frequency parallel. So how do we work with this nervous sighted feeling when we're feeling into this shedding energy, this need for release that we're being told is happening right now, this need for, this obscuring of the dynamic interplay between doubt and truth? It all feels very spot on for how a lot of us might be feeling nervous sighted right now. And we all know that we're ready to release something that is holding us back. Probably everyone listening to this has something that they can spend a little less time on, so that they can focus on the goods, focus on the beautiful future that we all want. And so, we're all ready to start planting fresh seeds for a better future. And our pasts, though, things from our past hold ways of being that are super comfortable to our bodies and to our well-trained minds that are seeking familiarity and patterns and comfort in the way that we've done things throughout our life. So shedding our skin, which is a very eclipsy kind of thing to do, shedding skin is not painless. It's not an act that just the skin slips off. It's like you have to really work your way out of it. So in the logical way, it makes sense to be afraid right now and more nervous than excited on that spectrum. But I'd say this is where tools come in, and I don't recommend conscious manifestation or elaborate rituals during eclipse season, but I do recommend finding something that can help you surf any waves of chaos or confusion that you enter this season, and surf them with confidence and trust and faith that it's going to be okay. So there's many ways we can resource ourselves, and I'm not going to tell you exactly what that should be for you, but I'd say now, as we lead up to this first eclipse and through the rest of September, really, it's a great time to find 1 or 2 things that have worked for you in the past and use them and be consistent with them. And if nothing comes to mind, no resources that you have, no practices that you have that ground you and center you, I'd say simply just rest more than you normally would. Take a little bit of a longer hot shower, a longer bath, go to bed a little earlier or stay in bed a little longer if you can. Give yourself that extra slack. Loosen the reins that you normally have on your schedule, even though we're in Virgo season and it's like back to school, back to work, get your shit together. It's having an eclipse season during the beginning of Virgo season can feel paradoxical and counterintuitive, but I'm going to have to start getting up early and driving to school early and doing lunches and all the things. And I'm ready to like seize the day and have it all together, get back to my spreadsheets. But at the same time, I'm going to give myself some slack if I like need to drop her off and then come back and like do a meditation after then, even though I should be jumping into work right away, kind of thing. It's like follow your body, follow your emotions, give it some space. But if you do have a practice that helps you stay receptive and grounded and helps you stay in beginner's mind, I'd say those are the practices to look towards and to just continuously utilize this month. You could do an embodied practice like tapping, humming, just kind of humming more than usual, sighing, verbalizing and vocalizing, running if you run, or breath work, or yoga, whatever it is that you do to get into your bodies. I think it would be really helpful because the earth is the body and the body is the earth. And this is a season of earth reverence. You could also just have a simple resource like a picture of something that brings you joy or peace that you put on your bathroom mirror or next to your bed when you wake up, taking your phone out of the bedroom and plugging it in the other room so that you wake up and look at a happy picture of your happy place rather than the glaring depths of the screen. That would be helpful. It could be a comfort food or a drink that you have, throughout the course, like a nice tea that you stock up on to bring warmth to your body. Ideally, I'd say this would be the non-intoxicating variety of food or drink, but you do you. A good cry or a laugh, like, again, if those come up, don't suppress them if you can. Being honest with your emotions and welcoming them in, letting that energy come into motion. Emotion is energy in motion, so letting that flow through. Some solid alone time this month to be able to process and receive. Virgo is connected to the Hermit in Tarot, and the Hermit card is the card of the year this year, 2025, numerologically. So we're in a very Virgo coded year with the eclipses here and also the Hermit tarot card. So the Hermit's about shining your own inner light into the darkness and not needing to follow a path that's already well trodden. So yeah, if you want something a little more active, like a kickboxing session or rock climbing, whatever it is that you do to get into your body or bring peace to your soul, just try to stick with it over the coming weeks and set up what that's going to be over the course of this first week of September, and just have a resource. When I'm guiding breathwork sessions, I tend to invite people to bring a resource like a positive memory or visualization along with them that they can return to if something feels a little bit out of control, or tapping your body, your chest, your arms to kind of just bring you back to that space, or humming, vocalizing, toning. All these things are really good in a breathwork session, but also throughout the month of eclipse season. So for me, my chaos surfboard is a special song that I've been playing on repeat and singing loudly along to as I drive along the roads on my commute. And I'm going to link in my Substack a really wonderful article about the healing power of singing and how singing is connected to the throat and the womb and the fascia system. And it's very good. So singing, I'm going to put a pin in it and say that's my go-to chaos surfboard for this month. But the song, I'm going to play a little snippet of this song because it's very special to me and maybe it'll help you too. It's called I'm Brave, I'm Strong, I Know Where I Belong. My partner's an audio engineer who helps me out with producing this podcast. And so he has a recording studio home office in our house. And my 6-year-old daughter has always loved to sing. And she's recently kind of taken it to the next level, really putting together some ballads. And about a month ago, out of nowhere, she put on her coolest rock star outfit and went into the studio and proceeded to record a whole album in one take over the course of like an hour. And there's several great tracks that came out of it. They're not polished and they're just her riffing with absolutely no planning. But she has a song called Fire It Up that's like a super rock ballad. She has a song called Love in My Body that just is very sweet. But the hit single of her album, if I had to choose one, is called I'm Brave, I'm Strong, I Know Where I Belong. And just the potency, the raw potency and innocence that she sung this with really moved me. And it's like a power ballad that's become my anthem when things feel scary. And it's kind of my surfboard for the waves of change, this song. And she gave me permission to share it with you all today. So take a listen if you feel called. It's on the Cycles of Time Substack, the full song. It has some ups and downs, but it's about 6-minute song. And I'll play a little snippet of it for you here if you're listening on the podcast. And it might help you enter the field of eclipse season with courage to surrender to the beautiful mysteries of this life too. So take a little listen. Here it is. I'm brave, I'm strong, I know where I belong. And one thing she said to me this morning, as she was talking about the meaning of some of her other songs, was she said, "All my songs are prayers, Mama." And we don't necessarily talk about prayer too much in this house, but I do talk about singing and vocalization and using our throat to bring awareness of our inner reality to meet the outer world. And so when she said that, it really touched my heart. Thanks for indulging me. I think all parents love what their children produce, but I just was really moved by this one and think that it's a great thing to take as a resource surfboard into the waves of eclipse season. So if that song isn't the thing for you, and if you don't have another resource that you're necessarily coming up with right now, you can join me this Wednesday. I'm doing a Virgo season breathwork journey on Zoom. And within these monthly sessions that I've been doing since the beginning of the year, We chat for about an hour about the archetypes of the season and the elements of the season. And then I guide you through a 45-minute conscious connected revolutionary breathwork session, which is kind of a 4-part breath that taps you into your body, taps you into the themes. This month is compassionate sovereignty and service, tied into Virgo season. It's conscious connected breathwork is just a type of breathing that can kind of get you to turn down the knob on your brain, your mental processing a little bit, and turn up the knob on allowing emotions to flow through your body. So I welcome you. It's at 5 p.m. MST Mountain Time on Wednesday, and you can sign up through my website at astrosomatics.com or through the Substack. There's a button on cyclesoftime.substack.com as well. So I hope to see you there and just kind of start off eclipse season with a little bit of breathing and attuning to our bodies. So if you're a paid subscriber or an Embody the Revolution member, you can use the code EMBODY for a free ticket. And all members of paid subscribers to my Substack get access to these monthly sessions for free, as well as a bunch of other goodies. So if you're interested in deepening into this process of walking the wheel every week in community and with an embodied sensibility, then join as a paid subscriber and you'll get access to all of that stuff. Anyway, one other thing I wanted to say, now that I've riffed and rambled and haven't even gotten into the nitty gritty of the wheel, I was recently listening to my friend Jonathan Coe's podcast, Healing the Spirit, and I loved how he started off with kind of a channeled message that was universal for everyone first. And then after that, he dove into the astrology and human design so that kind of just folks who aren't self-proclaimed astrology or human design nerds could gracefully tap out, but still benefit from listening to the first part. So after this week going forward, I'm going to experiment with a channeled forecast, a little bit more of a free writing stream of consciousness for the week ahead that will tie in the transits and the aspects and all of the things, but without being so didactic or without having to be so specific about it. And then I might put the other more specific deep dives into the transits and gates and beyond below the fold of my $8 a month paid tier. Really reasonable. So if you do want to access more, I would say, upgrade as a paid subscriber. This is just, because I love doing these deep dives, and I hope that those of you will consider supporting my work as I put a lot of energy into these weeklies. But I also, another reason is really just to kind of keep it more streamlined, because I can tend to overdo it maybe, or just go into too many weeds. And so I really like this idea of just putting the most, what's rising to the top up front, and then beneath the fold, kind of getting into the week in the wheel of the year as it pertains to all of these different wheels that we're working with. Anyway, that's going to start next week probably. But for now, we'll dive into the rest of the transits. And if you've had enough and received enough, this is a great point to tune out. But otherwise, keep listening. We will go through the wheel of the year. We're in the medicine wheel direction west, which is related to adulthood and fall, the element water, the quality of life of emotionality. We're in the whooshing Taoist 5-element cycle, element of earth, which is late summer, the transitional time between summer and fall. And Earth also represents the transitional time between all of the seasons, which is reminding me of the eclipse energy of just grounding in. Earth is the kind of center pole of all of the elements in the whooshing cycle, because it's bringing us back down. It always comes back to the earth. The pagan season, we're between Lammas and Mabon. Mabon is the fall equinox, and that's coming up not too far from now. I can't believe it. But zodiac season, we're in Virgo until September 22nd. And the I Ching hexagrams and human design gates of this week are from last Friday, August 29th, through this Wednesday, September 4th. The sun is transiting through gate 40, which is thunder over water, known as deliverance or liberation in the I Ching. And it's, the gate of aloneness in human design. And from Thursday, September 5th to Tuesday, September 9th, the gate of the lunar eclipse is Gate 64, confusion or imagination. It's known as fire over water or before completion in the I Ching. The moon phase is the full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces in Gate 63, the gate of doubt. And then we have a bunch of planetary dances happening this week, so I'll kind of skim through them. But most importantly, today, Monday, if you're listening on Monday, the 1st of September, Saturn retrogrades back into Pisces. On Tuesday, Mercury enters Virgo, where it is at home and exalted. Mercury loves being in Virgo, the specificity of communication. On Wednesday, the 3rd, Jupiter is trining the North Node in Pisces, and that trine kind of continues through the eclipse, which is a great thing. A very nice harmonious aspect there. On Saturday, Uranus stations retrograde in Gemini, so now all the outer planets will be retrograde. And on Sunday, 9/7, there is an eclipse that we've already talked quite a bit about. So I'll dive in quickly to the sun moving through the gate of aloneness and into the gate of confusion and imagination. So it's kind of, starting out the week with aloneness. I have been feeling this, I will tell you. The gate of aloneness hit after the gate of intimacy, and I had spent the week, the gate of intimacy, really being quite intimate, connecting with so many friends and just feeling really, really nourished by these connections that I made that week. It was wild. It was kind of out of nowhere. Just happened to really get deep with some old friends, new friends, family, just all of it, and nature and the earth and myself. There was intimacy. And then as soon as the gate of aloneness kind of crept in on Friday, as the sun transited into that, it was like all of that intimacy. I needed to be alone to process everything that was coming up. And it's continued that way. I've felt like really a deep desire to be alone. And so in human design, the gate of aloneness is located in the heart center, and it carries the theme of needing rest after labor, after the labor of being intimate and connecting with others. And it brings a challenge of balancing work with genuine nourishment, like knowing when to say yes and when to tap out. And it links to gate 37 to form the channel of community. That's the gate of friends and family. And so aloneness in the gate of friends and family forms community. But when it's on its own, it feels the pull towards solitude. And it's a place where you can really see if your cup is full to be pouring from. You can ask yourself if you're giving from a place of fullness or if you're drained and overpromising to others. So it's important to pay attention to that. For the beginning part of this week, this is again Monday through Thursday. In the Gene Keys, the shadow of gate 40 is exhaustion, the gift is resolve, and the city is divine will. So in that sense, it's about how overwork and striving lead to depletion. But when we honor exhaustion as a teacher, it reveals deeper strength of aligned willpower and divine will. So it's not egoic will, but a divine will. And this is known as deliverance in the I Ching, or liberation. And the image here is of a storm passing and clarity returning, kind of releasing tension that's been building up in ourselves through solitude and through getting in touch with becoming intimate with ourselves. And so, that's the basics of gate 40. It's about rest and relief and restoration, which is a great gate to really lean into before eclipse season, before the confusion of eclipse season comes. So it's a recognition that true resolve doesn't come from constant labor, but from alignment with something greater than ourselves. Then Friday through Tuesday, the sun moves into gate 64, the gate of confusion or imagination. It's actually known as the gate of confusion, but I like to call it the gate of imagination because it's my sun gate. I'm an artist. I like imagination. I'm a big fan. Confusion feels like it's the shadow. And in the Gene Keys, it is the shadow. Nobody wants to be confused, but there is something about allowing ourselves to be confused that allows clarity to rise naturally. So gate 64 is in the head center in the human design body graph, and that's a pressure center. So it brings a pressure to make sense of overwhelming fragments of thought and experience. All the bits and pieces that have come throughout the entire cycle are kind of turned into ether or gas here, and we're trying to grasp at them, be like, make sense of the past, and say like, what is this all about? And so in its essence, it's not about solving, but really about sitting in the unfinished and using it as like using all of those fragments as a canvas to create the new cycle without it having to be in order, for example. It's like letting images and impressions and feelings swirl around you until clarity arises with a sense of like illumination. Like the light changes and a beam of light just comes through the window, and it's like, so yeah, that this gate pairs with gate 47, and it forms the channel of abstraction, which is this movement from confusion to realization. But on its own, it can feel a bit Neptunian, a bit kind of confusing. In the Gene Keys, 64 has the shadow of confusion, the gift of imagination, and the city of illumination, like I said. And so, it's about looking at confusion not as a failure, but as a process to sit with, that where we become disoriented in order to open the doors to deeper perception and get beyond the linear and shallow levels of thought. The gift of imagination takes these raw fragments and turns them into art and story and vision. And the city of illumination illuminates the whole pattern. It's a deep pattern recognition gate, which I very much resonate with as my sun gate. And I deeply resonate with gate 64 as my birthday sun gate. So if anybody else has gate 64, holla, shout out. Right, tell me how it shows up for you. In the I Ching, it's known as before completion. And so again, it's the very last hexagram of the I Ching. 63 is known as after completion. So that's the paradox here, where 63 after completion comes before 64 before completion. So it means that, okay, we've used our logical reasoning skills to complete the cycle, but then right after that, before the cycle is actually complete, comes this sense of unfinishedness and the unfinished nature of existence. It's really harping on the idea that things are always in process and never fully resolved, and the ending is the beginning is the ending is the beginning. And yeah, it really tells us that when we're at the threshold of feeling like something is complete, we cannot rush, we can't make assumptions, because the story is still unfolding. So that is the opposite gate of the eclipse, where the light of this gate is being blocked out by the earth. So ponder that a little bit. The theme of gate 64 as the sun transits through is that confusion is a necessary ground for imagination. And it's that unfinished moment that precedes illumination. It's the dark before the dawn. So the transition between 40 and 64 this week, we start with exhaustion and giving ourselves a little extra space and time. And then we move into fertile chaos of gate 64, which makes sense because the eclipse is happening right after that. And so, we're talking about mental and embodied limits here. And I'd say this week you can let exhaustion teach you where you're overextended. Let confusion teach you that clarity can't be forced, and you have to just sit in confusion sometimes. And trust that both states are sacred thresholds, because exhaustion can restore our resolve and our focus and our divine will to do what we need to do. And confusion is the birthplace of imagination. So we're getting into some very deep Virgo gates. And this movement between these two gates sets the stage for the September eclipses, where doubt and embodiment are going to be obscured. And so together, the eclipses that are coming up are going to remind us that realignment doesn't come from pushing harder or thinking faster, but from resting and waiting and trusting the process of our own becoming. Woo! It's a soupy time, but lean in. This week's planetary dances are kind of like a tide that's pulling us back into the ocean before it's going to sweep us forward onto the shore and into a brave new future. Brave, strong future where we belong. So a little bit more detail here. September 1st, Monday, Saturn retrogrades back into Pisces, and this is where Saturn was since March of 2023. Until May of 2025, when it entered Aries, and now it's gone back through Aries, that first degree, and into Pisces, where it will be until next February. So this last dip of Saturn into Pisces is kind of like the the grandmaster of the lessons that we learned from 2023 to May 2025, those 2-year period. What kinds of things showed up for you in the sense of how to set boundaries and how to create discipline in the area of your chart that Pisces lies. Which house in your chart has Pisces at the cusp will tell you where boundaries and discipline and also faith might need to be reworked before Saturn fully moves into Aries in February. It's a revisiting of old ground. So really you can look back to the photos on your phone or emails or just memories of March 2023 to May 2025 to kind of look at what you're finishing up and restructure the slippery waters of Pisces, the fishes. So I want to go more and more into this because it feels really important right now since the lunar eclipse is in Pisces and Saturn's also there, but I'll leave it at that for now. There's plenty written about this out there. The really good articles that I've been reading about Saturn's re-entry into Pisces. Tuesday, September 2nd, Mercury enters again its place of home and exaltation, Virgo, and it just cuts through any haze, the confusion and haze, with a kind of sharp mental precision. Mercury is a planet of communication and commerce, and it's the winged messenger between the gods and humans, and it's like this swift moving planet that really enjoys being in Virgo because it can be very precise with its messages. And so during this time, the mind becomes more exact and words might get clearer and cleaner, and the details of life might start to just come into full focus again. There's a little less bravado with Mercury here after coming out of Leo and more specificity. So Saturn in Pisces is kind of, it's unraveling its structure in the land of the fishes. And so it's like, a bit of unraveling, but Mercury is going to help us sort and organize and articulate what it is that we need and what we mean during its time there. Then on Wednesday, September 3rd, Jupiter is forming a trine to the North Node in Pisces. And so that's Jupiter in Cancer, where it's going to be for the whole year. And this really offers a surge of grace and expansion. Jupiter is the great expander. And expanding on the North Node is expanding kind of what we are collectively hungry for, which is spiritual union, connection, transcendence beyond the mundane. And so our larger current of destiny is going to come into view with this trine and carry us toward visions that feel bigger than our immediate frameworks. And so this is a reminder here to trust the dream, even if it's not logical or rational, and ties in with the surrender piece. So it's like right now, this week, we're like, ground into the body, into the earth, touch the grass, and also use that body as a channel to dream big and imagine possibilities that are not quite in reality yet. September 6th, Uranus stations retrograde into Gemini and heads backwards for its final hurrah in Taurus. So Uranus was in Taurus since 2018 and then moved into Gemini earlier this year. So this is, again, that dipping back into the previous sign. It's not happening yet, and I don't have the date off the top of my head of when it will go back into Taurus, but it's beginning that retrograde through the first degree of Gemini and heading for Taurus. So whatever house in your chart contains Taurus, you can look to that place to see what will be revisited as far as a little bit of a lightning bolt of awakening for this final time. So Uranus is all about disruptions. And in Gemini, it's about disruptions to thought and communication and our close neighborhoods and technology. So Uranus is all about shaking us out of stale mental loops and into new ways of thinking. There's an energy to the week here. I'd say that this week's progression of transits, there's something happening every day, and that doesn't always happen, but it's reminding us that real growth is coming from staying flexible enough to surf any chaos that this season might usher in. It's really about knowing that we can't be certain right now. That seems like an understatement, but flexibility. Get that surfboard. Know that you will have mental faculties with Mercury and Virgo to assist you, but don't cling on to those too tightly. So the eclipse, just to finish this out here, even though we've talked a bit about it, this eclipse is, the moon's in Pisces, gate 63, and the sun's in Virgo, gate 64. And the eclipse is trine Jupiter in Cancer, and it's also trine Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio. So there's a grand water trine happening between these three placements. And then the sun in Virgo makes a sextile to Jupiter in Cancer and a sextile to Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio. So it's kind of this kite formation. And yeah, that's forming like kind of a network of supportive trines and sextiles that could soften the intensity of that opposition between and that alignment between the sun, moon, and earth. So the moon and the north node are in Pisces. And when they trine Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio, there might be some hidden depth. Black Moon Lilith is like raw, unfiltered, real, feminine realness, which could mean feminine rage. It could mean ancestral shadows surfacing more easily. And with that trine, that kind of harmonious angle to the eclipse, it could offer a chance for release and for connecting with our larger destiny as the collective through allowing some darker themes to come up to and just providing them a channel to come through. And so again, cry, laugh, scream, punch, do what you need to do this week to release the emotions that come through, because they might be coming through from some, or some ancestral patterning that's not even conscious to you. So there's also this simultaneous trine to Jupiter in Cancer, which is adding a sense of protection and grace and expansion. So it's in, the sign of the home and family. So it suggests that even in this vulnerable place of chaos, like we're not surfing alone, everybody's surfing together on their own surfboards through the chaos waves, and nourishment and belonging are available to us. So this is a nice trine to have to this eclipse. And the sextile of both Jupiter and Lilith to the sun and Mercury in Virgo are giving a kind of grounded outlet. So we can know that what arises in the shadows can be sorted and articulated and integrated into clear values and communicated practical choices. So these aspects of the trines and sextiles really turn the eclipse from a purely destabilizing event of confusion and obscuration to an opportunity for emotional depth and healing and meaningful reorientation. So take that as you will. The eclipse falls directly on the axis of gates 63 and 64, as I mentioned, and these are the last two hexagrams of the I Ching, spanning the polarity of doubt and confusion. Together, their archetype they're both very mental, and so it's like about the limitations of the mind and the potential of the mind at its limits. So there's the pressure to prove with 63 and to test and to be curious and keep asking questions, and then the swirl of unfinished fragments and how those interplay, and then the earth shadow reminding us that, like, hey, we can't always be in that mental dance. Like, let's return to the body. Let's return to these other ways of knowing. Again, normal full moon allows our conscious identity to kind of shine the field of possibility through leaning into confusion, leaning into imagination, and then the moon's reflecting back the doubt and inquiry and curiosity of gate 63. And in a normal full moon, it's this dialogue of weaving confusion into imagination and doubt into truth. But under the lunar eclipse, the earth is really showing up, and the material world is interrupting this mental pattern a little bit, where the moon is going dark instead of reflecting back clarity and questioning. So this eclipse is revealing kind of how insufficient it is to prove your way into trust. You're never going to get all of the data points and all of the fragments collected. So there's a little bit of surrender. And there's, also a futility of needing certainty before stepping forward. This is a time where we have to love without certainty. Just continue to love, continue to have faith. And the invitation here is to let imagination lead while old structures of doubt are dissolving into shadow. So that's really what it's about. You won't find certainty by questioning harder. You won't resolve confusion by analyzing faster. The mind is eclipsed so that the heart can trust and the body can lead and the imagination can open the way. That's my final statement here. And I did write some eclipse season horoscopes for all the rising signs on Substack, so you can find that at cyclesoftime.substack.com. It's linked in this post as well. And I really am just wishing you beautiful, beautiful week ahead, beautiful surrender, faith. Funny, faith is a word that I didn't grow up religious, and I didn't grow up with that word even being a part of my lexicon. Faith felt very far away. I think like the Limp Bizkit version of like faith, that song Faith, was where I first started like saying the word in junior high or something like that. And it's really funny because I just never connected with faith. And lately it's just been like faith and surrender kind of go hand in hand, in the sense of like you're allowing and welcoming light from beyond, light from the universe into your own body, and trusting in that process rather than shutting it out. And I've been kind of obsessed with the Collective Soul song from the 90s called Shine lately. It just came on the radio, and then I've just been playing it on repeat. And the more I think about it, it does sound kind of like a religious song. And I looked it up, and the singer's father was a pastor, so he did grow up in the church. But the song is just so good. If you haven't heard it, I recommend looking it up. Let It Shine by Collective Soul. But yeah, I was just like, wow, a lot of this this kind of imagery of the light shining in has been coming through lately, as far as the way to make our way through the darkness, which eclipse season is shadowy, it's dark, and you can welcome that darkness, but also know that you can allow light in to fill your cup, fill your cauldrons, fill your chakras, and let that be one of the ways that your surfboard can float through the dark seas of eclipse season. So I'll see you next week in the midst of it all, and I wish you a beautiful week ahead. You can find my podcast on anywhere you listen to podcasts, and subscribe, give me some reviews. I'd really appreciate it. It always helps get the word out. Share. You can subscribe at cyclesoftime.substack.com and get the podcast in your inbox every Monday. I'm on Instagram at astro.somatics and Cycles of Time Podcast. And then I do have some limited readings available. Wednesdays are my reading day. And so if you're interested in getting a reading from me that ties in all of these cycles, and it's the birth chart reading or a transit reading that brings in the human design gates as well, you can book readings with me at astrosomatics.com. And don't forget about the Virgo season breathwork journey this Wednesday. Sign up at astrosomatics.com, just click book a session and go to breathwork, and you can find the link to that. And yeah, we can dive into the archetypes and myths and elements of Virgo season, and then bring it into our bodies through a beautiful musically led breath session. So I look forward to seeing you there, for those of you who've already signed up, and for those of you who haven't, I'll see you next week on the podcast. Bye.